Oh, we have a problem.
My machine says live on YouTube.
Okay, it looks like this message is a false one. Yep, well, I think we're good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Phil. So, good morning, everyone. So we'll start out a little differently than our normal day today. We have two members that have other duties today. So we have a 9-member committee, and we'll continue on with our work that we left off with yesterday. And thank you all for joining us yesterday. It was a great experience, and I actually looked at some of the recorded live stream, and y'all look good. So let's get started. Becky, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am just bringing us to, so Becky Wasserman, Legislative Counsel. This is draft 1.3 of the Capital Bill. And yesterday we left off at section 12. So I'm just bringing that back up on the screen.
Okay.
This is a highlighted section because it's a brand new section. The appropriations are not new, so the bottom line of the bill has not been changed. But these are 3 separate appropriations for stormwater 3-acre parcel permit applications. And they were in the previous draft in the clean water section of the bill. So they've been removed from that section of the bill and I created a new section 12 to put all of these together. So there's an appropriation for BGS, for the Department of Military, and for A&R. I had received a question regarding whether there needed to be some language change to for the appropriation, that it should be for the general permit application process. I spoke to BGS, and they actually said that might be, the word general might be too specific for this language, so they requested not putting that in.
So Becky, you suggest we put in general, and that is.
I had received a question asking if it needed to say that,
Okay.
and so I asked BGS, and they said it did not.
Okay, and I'm a little leery of. I think that maybe, I don't know where the question came from to you, and it's fine. I think we really want to make sure that we tie this money up. What do other people think?
Butch, this is Kurt.
Yeah.
I think that question came from me, and
Okay.
because I was curious as to whether 3-acre parcel permit was the official way of looking at it. So I did a Google search and found it referred to on, I think it was the DEC website, as something slightly different, whatever I told Becky.
Okay. So you're good with that? You're good with Becky's response?
Do you need?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you need to hear from Eric on this?
Committee members?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, we've already talked about this a fair amount, and I think the idea was, to take it out of the Clean Water Board side of things to just allow a little bit more flexibility.
Sure. And we did take
not to muck up that amount later on next year.
Right. So Becky, thank you for making this a separate section, and I noted that you did put the force and parts and A&R money in this section also. So that cleans up that little bit of discussion we had earlier about that. So thank you with that. Everybody okay with this section? If you're not, yell at us or unmute yourself or whatever, because y'all can do that.
I'm good with it.
Huh?
I'm good with it. I'm good with it.
Okay.
Then I'll move on to section 13.
Yeah, let's go slow on section 13 a little bit and just give us the language, because I think this is going to create a lot of discussion.
Okay,
so thank you.
So In FY20, there's a $50,000 appropriation for the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, and that goes directly to AOT. And then in 21, AOT gets a $700,000 appropriation for Lamoille Valley Rail Trail and $750,000 for the electric vehicle equipment grant program. And then there's some language associated with this that is new. In C, there's intent language that the total estimated, that the rail trail shall have a total estimated cost of 1.4 million and shall be completed over a 2-year period. And that it's the intent of the General Assembly that a capital appropriation shall be made in FY22 to complete the project. You can't bind future legislature to make this appropriation, so that's why it is intent language here. And then in subsection D, there is new language that says the Secretary of Transportation and the Commissioner of Forest Parks and Recreation by December 1st of this year they have to develop and execute an MOU regarding the ongoing maintenance of the rail trail.
Okay, everybody take a minute to just take that language in if you haven't read it yet.
I have a small question. You said a 2-year period. Do we have a start or an end to that, or is it just when the 2? See what I mean?
I don't have dates. The only information I was provided with was that it would take 2 years. So the capital bill money is available upon passage. I guess
Okay.
The question is whether how soon after they get the money, they would start construction. I don't know. I don't know if there's someone from AOT who can provide exact dates.
So maybe I can help a little bit, Beck. On line 14, the total cost of the project is actually 2.8 over a 2-year period. That's been the total request, I guess I should say, is 2.8 over a 2-year period. Or over a 1-year period. We're proposing a 2-year period. And making any sense there?
That's correct.
Okay. And then it says it's also the intent of the General Assembly that a capital appropriation. I'm not sure that we would want a capital appropriation linked to the 1.4 for the next years because the Transportation Committee's kicking in some money. But that was this year's agreement. Just don't have to have an answer yet. Just think about that. So we've got to be really careful and on what we're doing here, so we don't tie this budget into funding the whole rest of the project, subject to agreement between the chairs committees in question. And if any of you had the opportunity to read the transportation bill and this section on Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, there's really hardly any language in that section concerning that money. I couldn't find any language in the bill. I may have missed it, but I couldn't find any language in the T-bill about this money, except there is language in that bill that's incorrect. And that's for you, Beck, or Catherine, concerning the $700,000 appropriation from transportation to this project. There's some language that goes with a little bit of language that goes with that's money that's got some incorrect figures in it in the T-bill. So it's something we want to be aware of.
Do you?
It was my understanding that there's not language in the T-bill about it being
Right.
done over a 2-year period.
Right, and I agree. I did, like I said, I did read that carefully. But also, there's a statement in there about using $500,000 worth of previously using $500,000 worth of capital appropriations, and I think that's a typo. I think that should have been 50,000. So I'm wondering if we need to think about amending the T-bill as a committee to straighten that out, or one or two of us amend the T-bill.
I think it's in the Senate now.
Okay. All right. So maybe we could get to, I'm going to let the chair take the plot the course for that, but we want to remember to talk about that if a little later on before we get too far ahead of ourselves. Did we vote the T-bill out?
We didn't vote it out. Sorry,
No, I didn't think so. No. We did or
I
didn't?
think-
did
Is
not.
it in Senate Appropriations?
No, Senate Trans.
No, they didn't vote. I think, didn't they vote it out of their committee?
They did vote, the House Trans voted it out of committee, but I don't think it got to the floor.
You're right, Butch. It did not come to the floor for a vote yet.
Okay? All right, cool.
Okay, is it in, it usually goes to House Appropriations. I'll go
Yeah,
look. and
it's
see.
probably still sitting there.
So they could also amend it there.
They could. So if we can, Catherine, if you could look that language up and see what the,
Yes,
It
do you
just-
have any more information about that?
So there's the FY20 appropriation in the capital bill of $50,000.
Right.
And there's perhaps a mistake in the T-bill that it says 500,000.
500. Okay, I will, but that's the only issue, right? There's nothing else.
So far, except, yeah.
Except they didn't put language in, but that's a different, okay,
Yeah, that's a whole, never mind. I won't say what that is.
yes.
Okay, so we'll have to keep that in mind. This is going to be an important piece of the bill here, folks. So we want to make sure that we get it right. So let's just for a minute, let's just move on from that while Catherine does a little research. And because I think we got to do some real work on this piece. Eric Philcorn, are you in there?
He is trying to do two things at one time, so we can text
Okay.
him if we need him. Do you want
Okay.
him?
I believe
Well,
he might have sent a message.
he did send a message. Yeah, so he's talking about the T-bill, and his concern is how can you impose a limit on the total cost of the project? And I think those are valid concerns, but we can, I don't know. I don't want to answer that question.
So
Yeah.
so in C, is the committee comfortable saying the total estimated cost of capital dollars that will be used over a 2-year period?
Anybody want to weigh in on that one? Let's just wait on that, Becky. We gotta figure, you may have to go think about that a little bit without doing it under duress right now.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm just trying to understand the you said it's 2.8, but is there a way to let me know what amount you're expecting to pay?
Well, okay, yes, there is, because the
Okay.
original request administration was 2.8 million, in this bill.
Okay,
So we've kind of split that, as you followed it, we've kind of split that up into a 2-year deal. And we have struck a tentative deal with transportation that we would fund 1.4 in different ways this year, and with our intent to fund 1.4 in a similar different way next year, and understanding that the intent language does not bind the next legislature.
okay, so there is still a remaining 1.4 that will need to be appropriated next year, but the split is not clear yet.
That's right, and that's based on the request from the administration.
Okay,
Okay. And we want to make sure we don't tie the capital bill into 1.4 for next year. Okay.
okay.
Okay. Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. Let's try D and see how we make out with that one. Let's go on to D if everybody's kind of confused about that. Go ahead, Beck.
D is in relation to transportation and forest parks and recreation, developing and executing an MOU regarding the ongoing maintenance of the trail. I have a date there of December 1st, 2020 that this has to be completed by.
Everybody kind of okay with that for now?
Looks good to me.
Can I go
Yeah.
back just for a second to the transportation bill?
Catherine, we'd love to have you take us anywhere.
Okay, I'm looking at the transportation bill, and the 500,000 is from the Agency of Transportation's proposed budget. So their budget apparently talked about, they were hoping to get 500,000. Oh, it's a FY 2021 budget, so it's not last year's money. And they're replacing language in the transportation's budget from 500 to 700, and you guys are appropriating 700. So I think that is okay. I've got to go
Okay.
back and revisit the 500, but I think this is all just about what they wrote. I will circle back, but I don't think this is all about FY 2021. So I will double check.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's try to move on if we can. I don't have anything on the line 18 language from anybody. I know we wanted to be stronger, but I don't think we can right now. So go ahead. Beth.
Sarah? Butch?
Yes.
It's Sarah here. So is with regard to line D, I know this reflects a lot of our discussion as a committee. What impact will this have on a future capital budget? Will it increase Forest Parks and Recreation budget to deal with this? I would imagine yes, or do we know?
Well, I don't know for sure, Sarah, but it's my gut feeling that the answer will be yes to that, to a certain degree.
And by asking them to do this, we're encouraging that.
Ooh, yeah. Although, it depends how they write the MOU, because I do know that currently transportation is funding a lot of work on the D&A trail down here in Rutland County. So depends what the MOU says. So I'm wondering, have them develop an MOU and get it back to us and the Transportation Committee for review prior to execution. Does that make any sense?
That's what I was hoping you might say. I think.
Okay.
This is Carl. If it's ongoing maintenance, it's not really capital eligible. So it's not necessarily, it's not likely to have an impact to the capital bill, right?
Yep. But just something to think about, Carl. We do appropriate money to Forests and Parks for maintenance of their major maintenance projects. So that could affect, I think that could affect that line item in Forests and Parks. So wouldn't the safest thing to do is just have them, before they execute the MOU, report back to the committees of jurisdiction?
Mhm.
Because nothing's going to,
Whoop.
We lost him.
He just disappeared.
no, I'm back. My phone took over my iPad. Sorry. So anyway, would everybody be happy if we did approval of the MOU before anything happens? Then we would have a better idea of what could happen to the capital budget.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So
Yeah,
is the December 1st date when they would report back to the committees?
Yeah, let's try that.
Yeah.
Actually, why don't you do it on January 15, 21?
Hey Butch, this is
Yes.
Felicia.
Hi.
Are we going to put into D at all that we want it to operate as a linear state park? I know we had discussed that in committee when we were all around the same table. But I don't see it here as a directive to put into the MOU, and I don't know if it's necessary to specify that.
I think, Felicia, from what I'm understanding right now, this may be as far as we can go right now with this. And I understand the committee's wants to do a linear state park, but it might be best just to let the two agencies figure it out and let us take a look at it. Hi, Alice, you're back.
Hi, I'm back. You got me.
Okay,
Thank you.
so, okay,
No,
so,
I agree with what Butch is saying. I think this is as far as we can go at this point because of conversations with the administration. Is that fair to
Okay.
say, Butch?
so we had a very long conversation, Alice, on section C. And we gave Becky a little bit of homework to try to
Oh, okay.
rework that section a little bit to do a couple of things. Talk about the 1.4 a little bit, so this bill doesn't get clipped to the entire 1.4 next year, and and how we move forward. And then you have some. We may have different thoughts on that as the day goes along. Yes, no?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine.
Okay,
That's fine. I don't want to lock us into 1 point for the capital bill for 1.4
right.
here. And this
Okay.
is all, did you share, Butch, did you share with them?
I did not. I did not.
Okay, what page are we on here? Okay,
13, 12.
12. Okay, because you can't see it. Okay.
Okay.
I
did not, Alice.
Okay, I received a letter last night from the administration, and Becky has seen this, and Catherine has seen this. They're weighing in on the capital bill, and their major requests, their first request, there was 3 things. On the Lamoille Valley Trail, they want the full 2.8 from us, and they are concerned that the federal dollars might not be there next year because of the situation with the virus. And, you know, it's all economic development. It's really important. The same they've been saying. So that's one of their first requests from the letter. The second request, well, I'm on it, but when we get there, the greenhouses, if it costs more to tear down and rebuild, that maybe we buy new greenhouses for the work camp. And the third request is that they want to have the ability to use previously appropriated capital dollars to help them through the COVID-19 virus if anything comes up. And the thinking that I have, as Catherine has on this, is that we need a little legislative check on that and not give them the full reign of what they can do with pulling capital dollars. So those are the 3 things from the letter from the administration. So getting back to the trail, we have to be very careful that we don't indicate that we're going to pick up that 1.4 next year, that we, you know, the full amount. That this trail issue is going to be the issue in the capital bill from here to the end. That's the only thing that people are going to focus on.
So, Alice,
Mhm.
in light of your conversation just now about the administration requesting all the money for the LVRT and this bill, I have myself personally, I have looked at a piece of this bill that I would be happy to move from the current appropriation into this appropriation should we decide to do that. And I would be happy to delete section 12 in this bill and move those funds over to the LVRT should the committee decide to do that.
What's that again? Oh, the 3-acre parcel.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Well, in light of COVID-19, I don't see that doing a whole hell of a lot of movement right now.
Well, let's put that in our back pocket.
That's okay. Fine. I want the committee to think. Gonna
We
throw
need
it
a
out.
little, yeah, that.
You know, I've been
that's-
eyeing that since day one.
Yes, I know. We'll just put that, we'll just remember that, but
Okay. So you're up.
remember, you're on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. Well, hey, that's my opinion. Might be wrong, but it's my opinion.
Other folks? So what was decided for cleaning up the language? Anything?
Becky's gonna work on it a little bit.
Okay,
and come back with some proposals.
okay.
Okay.
Has,
Sorry, that's as far as we've gotten, a half an hour.
well, that's good. I'm probably got further than I did. Has anyone heard anything about the T-bill and where in the process that is? I mean, it's up in House of Probes. Has anybody heard?
Catherine
Anything?
just checked on it.
It's in House Appropriations. I can check on it. Alice, I also think that language is not tied to the 50, that number, the 500 is FY 2021. So I think it's different than the,
What 500?
which raised an issue today. That he thought there was some language in the transportation bill that talks about 500,000 and they switch it to 700,000. I think there might actually be, I mean, there's, they do acknowledge that there's capital funds going towards this project.
They do in the capital bill, in the transportation bill?
Yes, yes. And I'm checking with Neil on it because they amended it from 500 to 700 and I don't, it doesn't quite make sense to me, but it sounds like it's just 2021. So I'm checking with Neil on it.
And they didn't have any intent language.
No, it doesn't look like it.
And that was what was discussed, that there should have been some intent language there.
Yeah.
I
That
just
there'd be
didn't,
intent language in both bills.
so I saw capital money in the bill, Alice, and it kind of just raised an exclamation point for me.
In
I
what, the
didn't want-
T-bill?
Yeah, I didn't want us to get tied in anything that you hadn't agreed to.
Well, what was discussed with the chair of the Transportation Committee was we do 1.4 in FY 21 and 1.4 in FY 20. There would be 700 in FY 21. There'd be 700,000 from our bill and 700,000 from transportation. And there'd be intent language in both bills to say we want to get this done over a 2-year period. And that's why we're doing 1.4 this year and 1.4 next year. That was the conversation and the agreement.
So
Didn't
does it
happen.
make sense to include intent language that simply says that it's the intent that the funding of the project shall be completed in FY 22, and not specify where that funding would come from?
That's correct. Because we don't know, but and you can't bind a future legislatures, we all know, but the intent is we're going to do it this year. We're going to get it started. And the cost is going to be half and half between our bill and the T-bill, with the intent of finishing the remainder of it, get the 1.4 next year as well. But we were silent on where for next year.
So I just noted that Linda Joy's on, so.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Would you like me to keep moving on?
You're
Okay.
up, Alice.
Yep. So before we move on, did we all agree to D there in terms of the in terms of an MOU with AOT? Because I heard Marcia, you got your hand up? Unmute. There you go.
I did unmute. So are we gonna be sold down the river by the transportation fund? Is this what this looks at?
In terms of the 1.4?
Yeah, them not coming up with their half?
Well, it's in the T-bill. It may not survive the Senate. That will be the issue. This is gonna be the issue in the Senate. And it depends what's gonna happen with the T-bill in terms of the virus right now, because the revenues aren't coming in. And there's a lot of pressure to get the trail. This is, as I said to someone recently, this is like the issue of the lead testing last year, where it was put out, we're gonna do lead testing in all our schools. And then it was up to us as a legislature to figure out how to do it. But the politics were already out there oh, we're going to do this and we really support this and this is needed, but it puts the pressure on the legislature to figure out how to do it. So the same dynamics are playing here with the trail.
Okay,
Okay, so
And the Senate,
Alice?
the Senate is real clear that they want to do this and they don't support it in the transportation bill at this point. But,
Alice,
yeah,
your question on section D, Sarah brought up the question of future pressure on the capital bill. And we kind of all agreed that we could see, depending how the MOU was written, we could see future pressure in the capital bill in the Forest and Parks section under their major maintenance line.
mhm.
So I think we agreed to prior to enter into it, but prior to execution, they should send we should see a copy of the MOU and
Before it's signed.
before it's signed. And we chose January 15th as 2021. Sorry.
Okay.
We chose January 15th, 2021 as a check back to the committee's jurisdiction.
Okay.
That's as far as we wanted to go further, as you heard when you came in later, but and as you expressed, it's about as far as we think we can get it by the administration.
Okay.
For
Yes.
now. Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on if no one else has any questions.
Section 14 of the bill is the reallocation section, and there were no changes here. So I'll just scroll through unless anyone had any questions.
I'm gonna look to Marcia to do all this because she's so good with numbers. I depend on you, Marcia.
Page 15, section 15, this is the bond premium language. So there is a little over 11.6 million in bond premium. There's no change to this language, but I just wanted to highlight that for the committee. Any questions on that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And then we move on to the policy section of the bill. Section 16, these are property transactions. This is the BGS policy section. I've highlighted subsection A, which is the authority of BGS to sell the Baldwin brothers in Montpelier. I don't know if the committee has made a decision on that, but just wanted to highlight that for discussion.
So this is Felicia, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would be in favor of selling the buildings, but not the land.
I don't think you can do that.
You can, but it's tricky and it's financeable. If somebody, let's say a lobbyist wanted to come in, buy that building, that's great. But it's known that they do not own the land. Several colleges that used to offer housing on campus for faculty would sell houses, but not the land. It does decrease the value of the building being sold. But if the legislature at a future point wanted to retain that land for some purpose, it would mean that we wouldn't be buying it back. We would just be buying out the tenants, which reduces the future cost to the legislature. Is that something that we could even realistically consider?
Well, let me share with the committee the conversation I had with the speaker. Because remember I said I would check back with the speaker. And she is not supportive of selling this property at this point in time. There is, I would assume, possibly looking at all options when it comes to state space needs within the State House. And at this point, she's not willing to have these buildings sold.
that, sorry, Felicia again, it kind of makes my heart a little happy to hear that because I'm just not comfortable with letting go of those assets. But if it was something that we had to split a hair on, I figured that at least retaining the land would give us some future flexibility. But selling them at all is something that I think I've made really clear I don't like in any way, shape, or form.
Other folks?
Just Kurt.
Kurt?
I'm just wondering what this does to BGS's plans of the more efficient use of space. Would we still keep all the people there, or would they move them out and we'd have empty buildings standing there?
Well, the further conversation that I had with the speaker, because there is some state function in those buildings, legislative function, is before any folks from the legislative branch is moved, particularly to 133 State Street, that there needs to be some legislative input in that. We're a separate branch of government. And we have a lot of balls up in the air in terms of space needs within our current State House building, and within the use of the Pink Lady, and within the use of some of the buildings on Baldwin Street. So the feeling is everything is so uncertain in moving people around, and in conversations with the speaker and having a legislative input with BGS before any movement is done, is to have either the approval or maybe the consultation, but I think it was more the approval of the joint legislative management committee. And that committee would need to consult with the two chairs of the institutions committees. That's what she was suggesting, that there needs to be some legislative input before there's any movement of any legislative function to 133 State Street or any place else within the Capitol complex.
But how much of that, how many of the people that are occupying those buildings are actually legislative as opposed to administrative? I get, because there are still.
Our IT people are there, our Capitol Police are there. And also, you don't know if we're going to need some of that space for future legislative function.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
We don't want to cut our nose off to spite our face. And
no.
If space is at a premium and then you end up selling some buildings you already own, and a year down the road, you might say, oh my God, why did we do that? We just, January is not that far away next year. And there's got to be some decisions made in terms of where we house some of our support staff. And we need to be part of that discussion as a legislative branch and not have the executive branch drive everything for us, because we also look at how we function as a branch. What have you got there, Butch? You got your hand up?
Well, kind of.
What is that, a thumb?
That's my thumb.
Oh.
Sorry. Honest to God, it's my thumb.
Wait till I have a cat in my.
Yeah, okay. Actually, the question for me breaks down into basically 4 issues. The renovation piece, and I think I brought this up to you, Alice. The commissioner said using money that we allocated maybe 3 years ago to 133 for renovating the space for IT. There was about $700,000 that we allocated for that. They
so,
spent
Butch,
some money.
let me interrupt you there. When you said IT, you're talking about Agency of Digital Service.
That's
not
what yes.
Okay.
Not legislative IT, but for ADS. Yes, yeah. I'm sorry. And we allocated that money and approved that project. I would like to see the language around that. And I know, Alice, you've asked somebody to take a stab at that to see what the BGS can or can't do with that money. And I think it may have, I'm not sure that we can go from renovating for IT purposes to general office without some sort of legislative approval. That's the first issue. The second issue is, I believe the commissioner has the authority to move state employees around. Should they ask to be moved? But I'd have to ask Eric or somebody, or you, to weigh in on that, but they can do that. Take a look at what happened to transportation. They went from Montpelier to Barry, and we kind of found out about it secondhand.
Well, that was in the appropriations bill budget adjustment last year.
That
and
700
we-
was?
Yeah, to move them from National Life down to
Yeah,
Barry. We gave
yeah.
approval for that.
Yeah.
That was in the budget adjustment of the appropriations bill.
Okay. So I missed that. So anyway, the other issue is the legislative input, in which I totally agree with that. I think the speakers and your idea is a great idea, and we should say that in this bill. And then at the end of the whole day is the sale, and that's a way larger conversation than just saying, yeah, go ahead and sell them. So those are the four pieces for me in this. And if the renovations can go forward, and if the commissioner, under the current language, okay. If the, especially seeing how the commissioner testified that he's not going to use that space for ADS. The second piece is moving the state agencies over there that are under the administration that are currently on Baldwin Street. The third piece is the legislative input, and the fourth piece is the sale of the buildings. And that's sale of the buildings can be a long time down the road. So I don't know how we're going to address that.
Well, I think those four are valid. Also, it reminds me, in the conversation I had with the speaker, I asked her, did you do a tour of the buildings, Baldwin Street buildings, as well as 133 State Street, and possible movements? And she said the only thing that she and President Pro Tem did was see the room in 133 State Street, and there was no commitment given. And that was over a year ago. So Becky, I remember I mentioned something about Butch's first concern about renovations to the 133 State Street for the ADS. Did you have a chance to try to find something on that or not? You gotta unmute. Okie dokie.
I did not, and actually, I don't know if that's something that Catherine can pull up on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I believe it was from 2 years ago.
I can do that. Hang on.
Meow.
All right.
Here, you guys can have some levity. Meow. She's the one that comes up with me.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my Sarah.
Okay. Hang on. Sorry. I'm gonna make it bigger. Oh, I'm not on mute. Okay. The 133 State Street, on the spreadsheet, it said renovation of mainframe workspace to office space, first floor, DII, 700,000. And that was in FY19.
So I'm going to ask the repro group.
I can go look.
Did that come in? Have they used any of that?
Let me go look. If you get, do you guys want to go on while I look and see? I have. Yeah.
So while they're looking at this, let me put out about needing legislative approval before moving any of our legislative branch folks. Where's the committee on that? While Catherine and Becky are.
I'm good.
Kurt?
Yeah, this Kurt. My impression was that we had to be, but if we want to put it in here, it's fine. I thought we were already had that it had to be cleared with us.
And where would that be, Kurt?
I don't know, just in discussions, I think Eric and the commissioner said, yeah, if we're moving it legislative people, then we need to get your approval, but it was just in conversations in the committee room.
Other
But
folks? Whoops.
Probably be better to put it in there in somewhere.
Sarah?
I would probably,
Sarah?
I recall in testimony that we had that the commissioner of BGS said that he had not yet had conversations with everybody. And I have to say that made me feel pretty uneasy at the time. He said, oh, that would happen, but so I would feel much better if there was some kind of check in here. And the other point was that was building the property at 11 Baldwin. I thought that has been added in at some point, and I don't remember hearing about that before. But those.
Anything else? Anyone else? Is there anything from Terry or Mary on this?
I was going to say I would probably feel better if there was some kind of language.
You sound sick, Mary. Are you okay?
From talking, I've lost my voice.
Okay. As long as that's what it's from.
Well, that's the plan. I don't have a fever.
Okay.
So this is the language that I saw when I was looking at the bill a couple of days ago, and it looks fine to me.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention to the committee, I did have this in the bill of section 23, and I've brought it up on the screen.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So this requires BGS to seek approval from the Joint Legislative Management Committee for any proposals to relocate legislative staff offices. And that management committee shall consult with the chair of the House Committee on Corrections and Institutions and the chair of the Senate Committee on Institutions prior to granting approval.
Okay, good.
Should we say legislative function, or do we want to limit it just to legislative staff offices? Catherine?
I think you need to leave, I would leave, well, so there are some, if you remember, there was a minority leader office down the street also. So I don't think you should move any legislative offices without approval, I guess is the only thing I'd throw out there, because I think it's going to involve potentially meeting spaces for legislators, not just staff.
Should I take out the word staff on line 5?
I guess that might be what I suggest, to keep it a little broader so they can't move anybody without checking in.
Are folks okay?
This is Felicia. On line 5, and can we just say legislative space? Because I think offices, those buildings could be used for something other than direct staff offices. So could it just say legislative space?
I don't know.
Maybe that's a Becky question. Is that specific enough to just say space? Legislative space? On line 5 there?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of if there's any space that's not attached to an office. I don't know the answer to that. So it sounds like Catherine just brought up an example of an.
Well, one legislative space could be the coat room.
Right.
Or legislative lounge.
So, I mean, I don't think it's a problem to say space. I'm just trying to think of if there's a reason why it's better to use that versus office.
I guess, Becky, the question might be if you have like a meeting room Maybe
Right,
Kevin's IT training.
Yeah,
if he-
that's,
he-
I was thinking, I know that they have they have a meeting space.
I don't know that it makes a difference. I don't know enough about the technology. I don't know how BGS defines or law defines offices versus space. I think it's your call, Becky.
I mean, I think space would be broader. So if there's a concern that there's something outside of just, you know, the offices, then probably better to use the broader term.
So why don't we at this point put in space versus offices, relocate legislative space. Eric and Chris are not on this morning. I'm sure they'll give us pushback on this to begin with, is my thinking. But I personally, and I'm not speaking for the committee, but personally, I really feel we are a separate branch of government. And we want to make sure that wherever our folks are housed, away from the physical state house, that it works for us as a legislative body to do the work that we need to do, particularly during our session. And we need a voice in that. That's my personal feeling. I'm not speaking for the committee.
I
Alice?
completely agree with
Yeah,
that.
Butch?
So I asked you this question this morning, and maybe, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I'm curious is if we pay fee for space in the State House, number one.
Mhm.
Number two is if we would need to pay or be compelled to pay fee for space at 133. That could impact my decision to know the answer to that. Is that something we can find out?
I'm sorry, Butch. Did you just say we would? Can you repeat your question?
Sure. I'm curious is if we pay fee for space in the State House to BGS for whatever. And
Yes,
then
we do.
two, okay. Then two, would we be compelled to pay for fee for space at 133?
Yes.
We would on both. The answer is yes to both.
Yes, we pay fee for space for the Baldwin spaces. It covers the heat, the hot water.
Yep.
The answer is yes. I can't tell you what rate we pay it at, but yes, we will pay that. And that is a consideration when we think about what space we want to take over, because that is a cost that comes with it. But yeah.
So we're currently paying fee for space in the Baldwin Street properties that we're using.
Yes.
Okay.
And Catherine, does that fee for space come out of the legislative council budget?
It comes out of the legislative budget, I believe.
full
I'm not sure.
legislative budget.
It actually, to be honest with you, I could double check. I actually think I can check with Dan Dickerson. He may allocate it to everybody's budget. Like JFO we may pay our portion of the Pink Lady. Kevin Moore may be paying his fee for space in his budget. That may be, I think that's how it goes. I will double check.
So, oh shoot, I just lost us. You there?
We're there, but we can't see you.
I know. I scrolled something. Now I'm at my email on my screen. How do I get back where I was?
Are you on your iPad?
Yeah.
If you click up on the top, is there a, hang on. There's a little red microphone at the very top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Click, touch that. Did that take you back?
Yes.
Okay.
The host has asked you to start your video. I'm going to hit OK. Am I back?
Yeah.
None of you are, though. Oh, there you are. Okay. So what Catherine just said about allocating the fee for space possibly to like joint fiscal for the Pink Lady and IT for where they are on Baldwin Street leads me to feel that the Joint Legislative Management Committee really is the committee to work with for approval, because they work with all of that.
And I should mention that there was a bill, I think it was 754, 52, that was, I don't know if it was voted out of the House, that was giving more authority to the Joint Legislative Management Committee. I'm not sure where that stands and if that's going to be moving at all this session in light of what everything else is going on. So, but that being said, this committee still does exist. It just, doesn't have that additional authority that was being worked on this session.
But the authority that they have right now could encompass this?
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate still. I just wanted to make it clear that that bill contemplated them overseeing all of the General Assembly, just being like the oversight body and having some additional authorities that it's unclear if that is going to pass this session.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes. How are you, Commissioner? You popped in.
I'm doing very well. I just finished up a series of calls and now I'm joining your committee. And I've been sort of listening about the fee for space question. Is there an issue you're trying to address, or you're just trying to educate and make people aware about these decisions?
Educate and make people aware. Butch had a question. Do we currently pay fee for space in the State House?
And Catherine's answer was correct.
Right. And then if we move to 133 State Street for IT, would we be paying fee for space there?
You would. And the way that the executive branch budgets fee for space is one of the first allocations. So if you think of the big allocations, fee for space, DHR, ADS, those are the first three budgets because they're rate setting and they impact all departments and the other two branches of government, the legislature and the judiciary. We do that budgeting first. So that's the first place where money goes. Those three departments, ADS, BGS, and DHR, we develop our budgets, we develop those rates, and then those get plugged into every other department's, and including the legislature and judiciary, their budgets. After that, we begin talking about funding the programs and the targets and things of that nature.
Okay. That helps. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Questions? So where are we for this language, folks? And we've jumped to section 23. Are we okay with changing staff offices to legislative space? Are we okay with that? Right.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, Kurt had his thumbs up. Sarah's nodding. Terry,
That makes
Mary.
This is Carl.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is that what you said? And then Chris has his hand up. Chris? You gotta unmute.
Yeah.
There, whoops, you muted again.
When I touch my touchpad, I'm on a Mac and it just explodes into like 8 different screens. I got to find the right one. I will defer to Becky's on this, but I think the commissioner of BGS has this existing authority, and you're seeking to limit the existing authority that statute already provides to the BGS commissioner. So you're probably going to have to not withstand that. And then I would ask the question, why are you notwithstanding language that has already been provided to the executive branch to perform the implementation of policy as determined by the legislature? I'll go on mute.
Well, I'll speak up. We are a separate branch of government, and we need to function as we function as a legislative branch. And there is feelings that we should have some say over where we place legislative branch folks and not leave it to the executive branch to make those total decisions.
And I guess my response would be that process is already functioning very well in that we understand that we all have to work together in a cooperative fashion, and that when legislative leadership tells me the space they would like to have, I try to make that happen. As in this case with 133 State Street, legislative leadership have indicated this is the preferable place they would like to have for legislative staff. And because the first tenant, and even though there are other people who wanted this space, I put the legislature second. So I think the process is working well, and I don't really see the need for the language, but that's my personal particular view.
Okay. Other folks?
I have a
Bert?
quick question.
Mhm.
Does Becky know which language would have to be that Chris is talking about having to notwithstand?
I don't. I'm looking at the commissioner's duties right now.
Oops. Oh, shit.
But I can continue to look into that at, offline.
Which do you want to take over here now?
Okay, sorry, I did find it. I think where it's in section 165.
165 of,
Title 29. I just have to look at this a little further. It's under this section of law, the commissioner has the authority to make space allocations. And I don't know if the commissioner can speak up and confirm that this was what he is referring to.
There's a couple of different sites, and I'll be happy to work with Becky on the side to identify them, but it's still, I'm not sure why we would do this. I just returned to that. We have an existing system which seems to function pretty well. And you're right, Madam Chair, we are separate branches of government, which necessitates that decisions that affect one branch or the other needs to have those full impacts be realized before those decisions are made. Because our system of government is a compromised system of government, so we have to maintain good relations in order to function, and we fully understand that at the executive branch. We're constantly trying to maintain positive and good working relationships.
Yes, you are. We
So
could have,
I don't see that deviating as long as I'm commissioner. I listen with big open ears when you speak, Madam Chair, as well
if any.
as well as when your committee speaks. So I hope to just maintain the positive working relationships that we have with our existing legislative framework.
Okay, other folks?
Alice?
Yep, Butch.
So Chris, unfortunately, you were tied up in other, probably more important places than this today, and didn't hear our whole conversation, but there is some real concerns about 9, 11, 13, 14, and 16 going out of the state inventory, and all the other things that happen with it. So maybe we should, I think we've got some new language coming, Chris, and I think you should wait for that before we move any further forward on this. And I appreciate your willingness to serve our chair in our committee, and I understand that. And I think we gave you back the woodshed last week, but maybe we didn't. Oh, matter of fact, is that? No, I thought I saw it behind you, but it's not. Okay.
No, we did give it back to him.
Yeah, we did. So I think we should kind of step back a little bit and see what language that Becky comes up with. as a result of our conversations and then move forward from there. And we will move forward.
Sorry, can I clarify that I thought that the committee had decided not for section 16 to remove that, but was that incorrect? I'm gonna just scroll back for the subsection A.
For the sale of Baldwin, Baldwin Brothers, to delete A and not do it this year and wait until everything settles in terms of where people are gonna end up in spaces. I spoke to the speaker and she is not supportive of selling these properties at this point in time.
So I was going to remove that, and then in terms of section 23, it's not clear to me whether I should be working with the commissioner on that notwithstanding language, or if the committee, it sounds like the commissioner is suggesting removing that language as unnecessary. So I just wanted to get clarity from the committee.
Well, that was one of Butch's questions in terms, can BGS move state employees without legislative authority or approval? And do they need legislative approval? And then when Butch brought that up, I did mention when folks from National Life were going to be moved to the Berry place. That was in the appropriations budget adjustment bill last year. And we gave approval for that.
Right. And the section I was just looking at does specifically talk about executive and judicial employees. But then it does give BGS authority to have sole authority to make space allocations and buildings that are, I think, owned by BGS. I have to pull up the language again. So it doesn't say anything about legislative employees.
It talks more about
if legislative employees are in BGS buildings, I think it's not entirely clear.
Okay, so it's a gray area, but the statute is clear that BGS has the authority to move executive branch and judicial branch. So that says to me, we need this language. Butch?
Alice?
Yeah.
So I will, I think this is important, and I'll make a bit of a motion here to remove this language.
Which one are you talking about? 16A? The building?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to make, okay, because we're talking both about the buildings and then we also talked about the oversight. So
Right.
so you're saying we delete section 16A, the ability to sell the properties?
Yes.
Okay. How are we going to do this here? Because I can't see you all.
I second that motion. This is Felicia.
Okay. Can I just have, I'm going to ask Mary and Terry first. Are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay. And then Carl?
Yes.
Okay. Sarah?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yep.
And then Butch?
Yes.
And then Marcia? Okay, she says yes, and I say yes. Okay.
Alice, did Mary say yes? I
Yes.
can understand. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she did. Both Mary and Terry said yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, do you want to talk about section 23?
Yes. So right now, the way that I have it looking is that we took out staff offices and we put in relocate legislative.
So I'll move we make that change because this is a little controversial also.
Okay.
I do think I would have to put in notwithstanding language just because they're, just to be clear.
Right.
Okay.
So Butch, why don't we just look at the concept of not the specific language, but.
Yep.
Okay.
I got it.
So let me just
Matter of fact, Matter of fact, I'll withdraw the motion until we see the new language.
But can I get a little bit of consensus from the committee if this is the direction people want to go in?
You're still the chair.
Okay, so
Thank
I'm gonna
goodness.
start. I don't know. Ask John about that. He'll tell me I'm not a member of your committee.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm gonna scroll through and I'm gonna start in reverse. So Marcia, can you give a thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up. Okay, okay. Kurt? Where are we here? Thumbs up, okay. Let me scroll. Sarah? Thumbs up. Carl?
Thumbs up.
Okay. Terry?
Thumbs up.
Okay, and Felicia? I can't see and I can't hear.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. I'm good.
Okay, and Mary?
Thumbs up.
Okay, you poor thing. God. Oh,
I thought you would be happy that I lost my voice.
no, I'm not. Oh, you poor thing. Okay.
Let's do something easy now, like sell an armory.
Yeah, right. Let's sell an armory.
Okay.
And with who?
I
So
keep
subsection,
wanting to scroll up on my screen and it doesn't work.
we're back to section 16, subsection B. This is authority for the Board of Armory Commissioners to sell the Enosburg Armory building with some conditions. It may be sold to the town for below fair market value, provided that the building is for municipal purposes only. And then the language that changed here is highlighted in yellow starting on line 19. So if the town no longer uses the building for municipal purposes, the state shall have the right of first refusal.
So there was concern in terms of how do you find the state would take ownership at the end. So in discussions with Becky, this is what we thought of.
Good.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Section 17 is amending the 2018 originally the 2017 capital bill, which allowed for the demolition of Stanley Hall, and this language is now changed to also allow for the demolition of Wasson Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a $950,000 appropriation for that.
Got it.
Any questions?
Not on that.
Okay. Section 18, there's no change to this section. This is changing the statutory section related to the commissioner's requirement to do facility condition analysis on state buildings. There's no new language here, but I don't know if any of the committee members had questions on this language.
I have a question of the commissioner on this. I would just like you, Chris, to remind us why we are taking out lines 15 to 18, where it would include a thermal envelope of the buildings and a report on the annual energy consumption and energy costs and recommendations. Why is that being deleted?
Because we don't want to do the process again every 5 years, because an energy audit is different than a facility condition assessment. Energy audit as a financial grade instrument is good for 10 years. So we would just, and the original audit findings, if you haven't done any work to the building, would remain unchanged. So it's just forcing us to spend money that we would otherwise not spend, and it wouldn't be necessary spending. The thermal envelope of the building, the report on the annual energy consumption and energy costs and recommendations for reducing energy consumption would not change over that 10-year period if nothing had been done to the building.
So what if there was something that was done with the building?
We would have the original suite of projects that investment grade audit would have performed. If they recommended 6 different types of projects and we only did 3, we would know that the greatest value would be coming back in and doing the other 3 projects before we would do another energy audit in that building.
But that is if we did energy changes, but I'm talking about what if we changed the building in general? What then happens to that energy audit, the financial audit? That's 10 years, but we change some things for the building itself that is not part of those other energy projects, but the building itself.
Then it wouldn't change the energy audit because it wouldn't change the energy consumption aspects. If you're not doing thermal work and you're not doing lighting work and you're not doing boiler HVAC work, the audit report would still stand. If you're just improving the interior of the facility, freshening it up, replacing a stairwell, adding in walls, whatever the project may be, it's not going to change the energy performance of the building. So the way this is drafted now, we conduct facility condition analysis each year of 20% of the building area and infrastructure under the commissioner's jurisdiction. And then we, hang on a second. And then the new energy section, I'm trying to scroll and I can't do it.
You can't do it. Scroll up and you can't.
The conduct invest in the last part, number 3, there you go. Conduct investment grade energy audits, develop a pipeline of energy efficient and conservation measures implemented through the state energy man or during construction projects. So the or during construction projects, if we added, and that's the program. So this program is evolving to become more efficient over time. And the energy office is in charge of running these investment grade energy audits, but then pieces of some of those projects, if we're doing a major maintenance and we're going to disrupt the floor anyways for doing a project, we'll bring in those suite of energy projects, that are related to that floor. But the remaining energy projects that have also been targeted for that building, we may wait for another major maintenance project, and the suite of energy projects isn't going to change. This was Dan's recommendation in order to use our financial resources more efficiently. And this was something he had been thinking about, but were unwilling to push it forward until Joe came to him and said, we're not going to have enough money through this 2% for you to do your energy audits. So that's why we're coming forward with the full proposal.
So in B,
and
you
to
can
answer
use up to 4%. If you scroll, Becky, if you can scroll to the next page.
Yep.
In B, it allows you to use 4% instead of 2% of your major maintenance.
Yep. For both, that 4% is for two things: facility condition assessments and the energy audits. If we didn't have that increase in the percentage, we would just be restricted to facility condition assessments. We wouldn't have any funding for the energy audits.
Okay. Questions? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. So Becky, keep going.
Section 19 of the bill. We discussed this in the previous draft. There's no new changes here, but just to remind the committee of why this is here. This was not in the governor's recommend. This came out of Ledge Council's review of technical corrections that needed to happen in statute. In Title 29, Section 166, this is BGS's authority relating to selling or renting state property. There's some language at the end of this section that says that this subsection doesn't apply to what essentially Forest Parks and Recreation can do with respect to selling property or interest in property. The issue was when we did our review of the language that The subchapter that it is referencing with respect to Forest Parks and Recreations Authority was incorrect, as was the type of authority that Forest Parks and Recreation has under that section, because the General Assembly actually changed that a couple years ago. So the sort of request was to update this and strike out chapter 55 and replace it with chapter 155, because this is actually the correct cross-reference. And the changes in language are changes that are necessary to reflect the actual authority of Forest Parks and Recreation to sell, exchange, or lease land under that section of law. So when we were looking at including this in the technical corrections bill, felt that it was slightly more than just a technical correction, because we were changing not only the cross-reference, but updating what that what the authority given in that cross-reference to Forest Parks and Recreation. And I mentioned this to the chair, and she agreed to have it put in this bill.
Alice?
Any questions on that?
Butch here. So just to refresh my memory, this goes back 2 or 3 years. Is that true?
Okay.
When this all came up, we found out maybe we were transferring property without authority.
Yeah, so typically Forest Parks and Recreation does transfers and exchanges of property through resolutions. And it came up a couple years ago that so this section of law had allowed certain transactions to be done by resolution, but it came up that perhaps some of the things that in that year that they were asking to do didn't really fall under what statute allowed. So decision was made to expand the scope of what they could do by resolution rather than through legislation. So that's why that was the reason behind the language change. But this did happen a couple years ago.
Yep.
So
Thank you.
Becky, I got dropped. I don't know what happened. Now I'm back on. I did miss the section, the part that you were talking about chapter 55 versus chapter 155. Does chapter 55 still exist?
Let me just double check. I think it does not exist anymore.
I think that, as if I remember, that was the testimony.
Oh, this is, it is not, it was actually replaced with what that chapter is actually the grants for municipal water supply and water pollution abatement and control. So it is no longer related to the sale of land or interest in land for Forest Parks and Recreation. So it's just an incorrect cross-reference.
Okay. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, let's keep going.
As a reminder, section 20 of the bill, there's no changes here, but this has to do with when the costs for engineering costs, when the funding of engineering costs will be transferred out of the capital bill to the general fund. That was supposed to take place as of July 1st of this 2020, and it has been moved to July 1st, 21.
So that next year,
Yeah,
we
I have
can
to double check if that is the way that was drafted is correct. I think it's supposed to be 2020, not 2019. That is
Right.
out, but this is proposing to change it to 21.
So next year, we will then have a discussion. Do we continue to pick up the engineering costs or not? Because that is to sunset on July 1st, 21.
Mhm.
Okay, questions? Go okay? Okay,
Section 21 is the establishment of the grant program for the electrical vehicle supply equipment. The change here is that, so this section was taken out of the transportation bill, and it just had referred to the agency. So I clarified on line 13 that it's the Agency of Transportation.
so this is language that goes with the grant program. Well, no, it isn't. Yes, it is. Well, you have that.
It is, and I'm now seeing that the cross-reference on line 21 should be changed to section 13,
Okay.
since that was changed in the bill. So this goes with the 750,000 appropriation to AOT,
Mhm.
section 13 of the bill for the electric vehicle supply equipment grant program.
So we want to make sure that the language, people were concerned, wanting to make sure the language is consistent with the T-bill language.
My understanding is that the committee had requested that the language to establish the program follow the money. So it is not in the T-bill, it's in the capital bill.
And this language comes directly from the VW Electric Vehicle SE grant program.
This language comes from what was being proposed to be included in the T-bill. But I coordinated with the attorney who was working on that bill, and it was taken out of that bill and put in this bill.
Yep. So then the other question is, if we continue down on this language on the top of page 19, it talks about, hang on, okay, strategically located. Where are we doing it for fee, charging a fee?
Section 22. Section 22.
That's in 22. Oh, that's BGS.
That's different.
Yeah, this is the 750,000 that we're picking up for the appropriations committee.
Okay.
And we wanted to make sure that these charging stations charged a charging fee. Correct?
Yes.
So is that implied within the language in A where it talks about continued build out of supply equipment available to the public and build upon the existing VW EVSC grant program? Is that mentioned in terms of charging a fee within the existing grant program?
I have to look into that a little more. I think this might be something that AOT has to weigh in on, how they're operating that.
So, Alice?
Yep.
Just to remind everybody, I did have a hall conversation with Michelle Boomhauer on charging the fee, and she gave me the thumbs up on that. And if you want us to call her again or whatever, we can certainly do that. But she didn't give me a thumbs down, that's for sure.
So Are people, the committee in favor of having these charging stations charge a fee for charging? Yes, I see a thumb there for Butch.
Yeah.
Kurt?
Yes.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure that, I seem to remember some testimony on this, and I'm not sure it was straightforward. That it seemed to me there was some thoughts about you're giving a grant to somebody to do it, and then you're required. It was a little more complicated than just saying, yeah, they have to charge a fee. I would want to get some input from somebody again, I guess. I'm not sure.
Okay, other folks? Felicia, were you going to say something?
No, I was just
Okay.
agreeing that we should be charging.
Okay.
But it's really not us charging.
No,
Real-
it's the company that, it's really the company or AOT. It depends who's installing it and who is providing the service. Correct, Kurt?
Exactly. Yes.
So it sounds like we need to get a little bit more information from Michelle. What is the best way of doing that? Do we think? Is that something we should have Becky check in, or Catherine, or a member of the committee? Or have her on our next, we're meeting this afternoon, right, Phil?
Yes, that's correct.
If we should try to get her online?
I think if Catherine can look into it, or Becky, if they have the time to do it, I mean, it's, if we have her come in and testify, it's going to take a long time. So I think a quick conversation with her might be enough.
So the questions are, do they have the authority to charge a fee, and is that authorized in this language or elsewhere? Actually, I received a reply that they do have authority in Title 32 already to charge a fee. So I think the question is, does this language, will they be charging a fee? So
Well, we have to be clear that there's two portions here, and when you ask whether they're charging a fee, whether it's the ones on the state that are, which charging stations we're talking about is what we just have to make that clear.
Well, right now, we're only talking about those charging stations. That's the 750,000 is going to apply to, not the BGS ones.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
So if I could just get some background as to what the executive branch is doing in terms of charging a fee. BGS recently conducted an analysis to set the rate for charging stations, level 2 stations that we're beginning to develop in our inventory of charging stations. And we have worked with the Agency of Transportation, the Department of Public Service, Fish and Wildlife, and Forest Parks and Rec on the rate methodology we used and what our proposed rate is. I have concurrence from all of those departments and the Agency of Transportation that the rate that BGS is establishing for its charging stations, they will utilize that rate if they have level 2 charging stations available to them. BGS has no plans at this time to install any high-speed level 3 charging stations, and we would defer to the Agency of Transportation to do that rate setting because they are the more likely distributor and owner of those level 3 charging facilities, which are more aligned with the transportation sector as opposed to the employment sector, if that makes sense.
Madam Chair,
yes.
I know Marcia had her hand up too, but
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. So we'll go with you, Sarah, first, and then Marcia.
I found my notes from the testimony that Gary Holloway also gave, and this is what I wrote down, is that the state doesn't, this grant money, if from my understanding, this is not, AOT will not own these stations. This is for grant money. That's a program that's coordinated with ACCD. And that the state doesn't want to get into the business of owning stations. These grants are to help create a network of incentivizing electric vehicles. And so I would agree with something that Kurt said is these are going to be grants that are going to be given to all different kinds of entities to create these stations. And I hesitate without having further testimony about requiring people to charge. Like if a Dunkin' Donuts wants to build a station and give away free charging, I don't think that's a bad thing, because these are not going to be state-owned charging stations. So I do think it'd be, if Catherine is tracking that down, it would just be good to get clarity on that, further clarity on that, because I don't think we raised this question with Carrie, LT folks.
Okay, anything else, Sarah? Okay, thank you. Marcia?
Who maintains these? I mean, if the business maintains them, they may want to charge. They're not going to last forever. They got to maintain them once in a while.
So does anyone have an answer to that one?
I can weigh in a little bit on two aspects. If the state of Vermont owns a charging station, that charging station, the responsibility to maintain it lies with the agency or department that owns it. Right now, only BGS owns charging stations that are being made available to the public or state employees that I'm aware of. And I did talk to the other agencies and department appointed authorities as to whether they were providing these services. They were not at this time, but some could see a future, such as like Forest Parks, where they might offer those services, but they're not at this time. Specifically on section 22, the language, the Department of Buildings and General Services shall charge a fee for consumption of power on any electric vehicle charger that is available to a state worker. In some aspects, we charge 110 power as we transition over to charging stations like we did on Aiken. So on Aiken, we put in 2 level 2 charging stations, but we also put in 2 level 1 charging stations. And a level 1 charging station is just a 3-prong outlet connected to 3-phase power, and you let the vehicle sit there for 8 hours and charge. Nobody is making charging stations that I'm aware of that are level 1 charging stations where you would pay somebody, to have all of that computer connection to credit cards and everything else that comes with a level 2 charging station. It just isn't worth the investment for such a slow way to generate a charge on an electric vehicle. So what we put on Aiken Avenue, they're still free. It costs $1.26 a day for the person to charge their vehicle. And we don't intend to make it free for much longer. When the next cycle of funding comes through, we plan on putting 2 level 2s in there because it's just a better investment in your parking space that now you can charge 2 vehicles in 1 parking space as opposed to just 1 in 1 parking space. So I think this language would disallow us to save money by digging the trenches for future power stations. I mean, we could still do that, but we couldn't utilize those connections until we could get the money another year later. And it just seems to us to make it easier for state employees and the public to accelerate the switch over from fuels. I'll get off now.
So I don't want to confuse sections 23 and 22. I mean, 20, I'm sorry, 21 and 22. I want to be very clear, they're different. One is being worked through with the Agency of Transportation. We're picking up $750,000 from the appropriations bill. Section 22 only pertains to the $75,000 that we have in section 1, and it's specifically for BGS to be put on BGS property. So who had a question? Was it Kurt?
Yep, just to answer Marcia's original question. If the company that the grant is given to, and we are talking only about the grant ones, then they can do whatever they want. If they want to charge, they can charge. If they don't want to charge, they don't have to. It's up to them, I would think. But that's why I'd like to get some input on whether that's a good idea or not. To me, I wouldn't put anything in there that says it has to be charged for that particular section having to do with the grants.
So is it fair to say that because it's a grant, it goes to a private entity? It doesn't go to the state installing these. It's a private entity that installs and owns the charging station. That it would be up to that private entity to determine if they charge a fee or not. The state dollars are just a grant to that private entity. Is that correct to say that?
I'm not sure.
I believe it is. I'm looking at just the flyer on the State Electric Vehicle Supply Equipment Grant Program. It's a 2-page document. And it is a grant, and eligible grantees are governments, businesses, nonprofits, homeowner associations, electric utilities, and EVSE equipment providers. And there's a list about what's eligible and match requirements. Match requirements vary depending on the land ownership and the public accessibility of the equipment. So this is a very much an overview of the program, but it doesn't speak to charging, and you obviously have to put in some work on your own as well with matching.
Alice?
Yes.
At the end of the day, this conversation started from a conversation we had quite a while back is a matter of fairness. And the matter of fairness was, and I understand the want to build out our electric vehicle availability and sales and all that stuff, and the desire of the administration to do that, and I agree with that. However, it was a matter of fairness for people having the ability to drive a vehicle and not pay for the fuel versus people that have the ability or are driving a vehicle and paying for the fuel. And I think that's where the original conversation started from. And I agree with Chris, I mean, these aren't money makers, but it's just a matter of fairness. And whether we're funding, and I'm not familiar enough with the program that ACCD is attempting to do, but it was just a total matter of fairness for everybody, that everybody pays for their fuel. And it's a really large conversation going on down the road with the Transportation Committee. And I don't know if they've done it yet, had figured out how to recoup a highway tax from EVs. But I think then we had this is a pretty long conversation we had in committee about what's fair and what's not fair. And so that's my 2 cents worth, and I'm be happy to talk to Michelle again on this, on section 21. I think 22 that's our decision to make, and how we write the language is the next thing.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just one more piece of information for the committee's awareness. On the interstate system, the only thing that's allowed to be sold is in vending machines, and the proceeds need to go to the Division of the Blind. And so the fossil fuel industry at the federal level has thwarted attempts to allow states to charge for EV charging at welcome centers and anything else that is associated with the limited access highway. So there's that little wrinkle too I wanted you to be aware of.
Kurt?
There's just one other consideration, is that if we do say that they have to charge for this particular section having to do with the grants, then we're going to run into difficulty, because one company might say, I mean, in terms of Butch's fairness, one company might say, okay, I'll charge a penny. Another might say, I charge $1. So if we're going to get into trying to control that, then we're going to have to come up with a charge that they're going to have to pay as well, not just the fact that they have to. I think it's better to leave it out completely. But I would like to have more information on it.
So should we, Becky or Catherine, is this something that you could get more information on? Do you have the time to do this?
I actually just spoke with Michelle. Would you have any interest in just having her on right now or not?
Sure, if that's available.
Okay, I don't know how
we do this.
Phil?
Maybe Phil has to send her a link to join.
An invite.
I can do that. It'll take a couple minutes.
Okay, I will let her know that it's, or I could just, well, I don't know if she can join with video, but I'll let you do it. Do you have her email, Phil?
It should come up.
Do you want me to continue until she can join?
Marcia, did you have your hand up? Unmute. Oh, who's typing? Catherine's typing. Marcia, did you have your hand up? You got to unmute. I can't, your microphone, okay. I don't know. Did you want to talk, Marcia? You got to put on your microphone.
Sure, I'll help her.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I just want to say, you know, spending all this money on grants to put them out there, they're still going to have to be maintained, and the electricity is still going to be used. So somebody's got to pay for this electricity. And when they first get their bills and they don't charge anybody, I think they're going to have a surprise. I don't care if it is only $1.26 per day, but that's how many vehicles are going to get charged on this. It may be more than that. So I think there's got to be some accountability somewhere. That's my 2 cents.
I think that there's agreement in the committee that there needs to be some accountability. The question is, with grant monies going out to a private entity or a business to provide these charging stations, do we require a private entity to charge a fee or leave that up to the private entity? I think that's the real crux of the issue. It's a little different than our own state-owned charging stations. I don't disagree, Marcia, with what you're saying, or Butch. Somewhere along the line, there does need to be some kind of a charging fee to level out the playing field. And I don't know how to get there.
But not only that, they'll be coming back later if something happens to these and they're not taken care of properly, and they'll want more grants.
Valid point. So if we can get Michelle on our feed, Marcia, that would be a good question to ask. Kurt, your question would be good to ask. And also Butch, your question in view.
I just sent the invite.
Okay. Now we're on until 11. And we have about 10 more minutes.
Yes, I think we are allowed to go as long as we want.
So I've got a question for Becky. I know that you're working from home and you're juggling the schedule with your husband and your 2 children because he's also working at home. We still have more work.
Many households right now, yes.
Pardon?
I said that is how many households are operating right now.
I think after Michelle, if we want to continue working a little bit, we need to take a break. Does that work for people?
Alice, I'd like to really see the governor's press conference at 11.
Okay.
We could tell
Well-
Michelle to come in when we're come back this afternoon.
Do we want to do that, folks? We're gonna have to get this bill out sometime this week.
I got it. I'm willing to work late tonight, but I think in light of what happened yesterday and the stay-at-home order, you heard my phone ringing this morning, so.
I'm texting with Michelle right now, Madam Chair.
So maybe what we can do here, why don't we finish? So people at 11 o'clock, if they want to watch the governor's press conference, we're due back when at 2:30, Phil?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So that would give time for Chris and Catherine and Becky to maybe talk with Michelle, get some clarity, relay to Michelle those questions of the 3 committee members.
It would be helpful if we just clearly stated what the questions are, because we can come back with the answers, but I just want to make sure that it's going to address everyone's issues. So I think one of the questions I heard was, if the grants are going to private entities, does this require or allow these private entities to charge a fee? Is that
Correct.
No,
That's
Michelle's
one.
coming
Michelle's
online.
on. Michelle's on.
Oh, okay, so
No, but I think that's good, Becky, because some of us are going to be going off here. So the 3 questions are, the money is going to it's grant money, it's going to private entities. Is there the ability, should we require those private entities to charge a fee? The second question or concern is we really need to level out the playing field, that people do need to start paying for these. And the third concern, I believe, is who's taking care of the maintenance of this? Is that correct, Marcia?
Yes.
So those, I think, are the 3 issues. Did I miss something or mischaracterize it? Is that?
Madam
make sense?
Chair,
Yes, who's this? Catherine?
Michelle Boomhauer.
No, Michelle. So Michelle, welcome on such short notice. Unfortunately, some of the members are going to be signing off because the governor's press conference is
Yes.
starting around 11 o'clock.
Mhm.
So you heard the questions?
I'm afraid I did not hear all of them, and I'm happy to join you again this afternoon if that would work better for the committee.
That might work. On the other hand, Becky, are you clear on the 3 questions or 3 concerns?
Becky, you're mute.
You're mute, unmute, there you go.
I can just repeat them for Michelle right now, if that's helpful.
Okay.
So the grant money, the committee's understanding that it's going to private entities. So should we be requiring them to charge a fee? The second concern was relating to leveling the playing field. And at some point, folks need to pay for those charging stations. And the third concern is who is paying maintenance on the charging stations.
Okay, I'm writing these down. Can you just repeat number 2, please?
So I think it was more a concern of leveling the playing field, and sort of at what point will there be a requirement to pay for the charging stations?
And repay money to the state? Is that what you mean?
I think
it's more a question that there are people who are paying for gas and there are people who are getting the charging for their electric vehicles for free.
Oh, okay. Pay for the electricity or pay a sort of gas replacement fee on the, we're working on that too. Yeah.
It's a free ride.
Yeah. All right. I can email responses to Catherine. Does that make sense?
You emailed the responses to Becky and Catherine. That would be a help.
Okay.
Because we're coming back on at 2:30.
Okay. I will be available at that time. I'll put it on my calendar, and then if you have questions, I can hop on. And
that'd be great.
maybe I'll also see if I can get Gary Holloway, who administers the current program, to be available in case there's a question I can't answer.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that work for folks, committee members? I'm assuming. Okie dokie. So it's almost 11. Do people want to break here and then pick back up at 2:30? We're going to have to finish our draft today because we need to finish our work on the capital bill. And Becky, if we finished our work today for a new draft, I don't know, are we scheduled at all for tomorrow, Phil?
No, we're not, that I know of.
Is there any openings for us tomorrow?
I had seen a chart where there was an opening. Catherine, do you?
I had too. I had seen a chart. It was an early version, so I don't know that it was finalized, but they had options for you to sign in, especially if you're trying to get a bill out, I think.
I can look into that.
That would be great, Phil, because I'm concerned we get done with this. Becky's going to have to do a new draft, and it's going to be very hard to turn it around like we normally would in the State House, because we're all working from home and Becky has responsibilities at home with 2 children and trying to manage, her husband's also working from home. So they're alternating, they're juggling. And I want to make sure there's enough time for Becky to do the work that needs to be done and get us another draft. And I'm thinking the next draft would be tomorrow is what I'm thinking. Does that work for you, Becky?
That works for me.
Okay, that's my thinking process. So Phil, if you could, Butch?
Well, before you get to Phil, the spreadsheet.
Yep.
I think we need to run through that one more time, and maybe Catherine can help us with that. I don't know how we're going to get a spreadsheet electronically that we can read. So,
well, we each have a paper copy, correct?
I do, yeah, but I don't know if everybody else out there is home. Maybe
Yeah, we
Catherine
do.
could just
We
give
can
us.
work on that.
Okay.
Because
I don't
once we
want to
finish,
I don't want to forget.
yeah, I don't want to forget that too, but right now we need to get through the language so Becky has time to do another draft. And if we should finish the language before we finish off this afternoon, we can do some work on the spreadsheet.
Sure. And
It's my
question
thinking.
for Catherine, the latest one the one I have in my hand is 3/13/2020 at 12:14 p.m.
Yes, I don't, it should have $87,000 on the bottom.
Yep.
87,531 left.
Yep.
I have edited some of the wording since you took it home, just from our conversations and reading Becky's draft. So some of the words change, but not the numbers yet. I might remind you that when you finally do, Becky will have to change her draft when you finally decide how you want to spend the money, just because it'll change the totals of sections and things like that.
Okay. And then Alice, today, before you got on, we had a quick conversation about the 50,000 in the water piece. Did you come in on that?
Yep.
And you
I did,
suggested, and we agreed to put it up in the 500 and then language it in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're still going to need it, I don't know what's going to happen with those schools the rest of the year, and if they can do any work over the summer to get them
Sure.
a new system.
Well, the ghouls on the repo committee can always go after that.
Yep.
Was that a language change that was needed for the PFAs, the 500,000?
Yeah, Beck.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. I'm just gonna, you're just changing the appropriation to 550?
And that 50,000 is used for those schools, and we're gonna have to look, because there was a group of 4 of them, and they weren't all schools, that we'll have to massage the language, but the intent is if they have to kick over to bottled water and pay for it themselves, that 50,000 goes to those entities to pay for the bottled water. That's the intent.
So they may use up to 50,000.
May use or shall use, I don't know.
Alice, I think it's got to be a shall, otherwise
Yeah.
that anything left over will be lost in that
Yeah.
500,000.
So shall use up to 50,000
Mm-hmm.
for the
For the purchase of bottled water for the affected. That's where it gets a little dicey. There's a list of 4 entities right now that this $500,000 they're thinking would go to.
Okay.
We'd have to work with it.
I'll get that information from DEC, from Emily Byrne.
Okay.
So that leaves $37,000 on the bottom line.
Well, we'll figure out a place.
Yeah.
I think we should split it.
What do you mean? You mean among us committee members?
Well, yeah.
I miss all of your fruits and vegetables, Marcia.
I
And
know.
peanuts.
Do you want me to take you off YouTube?
Yeah.
Yes, that would probably
Thanks,
be
Bill.
good. So we're gonna meet again at 2:30?
Yes.
And are we